The Israel-Arab conflict is one of the longest-lasting, most complicated conflicts in today's world. What makes it even more complicated is the intense and polarized opinions about it, especially regarding Israel and Palestine. After researching this topic not just for this speech, but in years past due to interest in it, I will now present to you why there is so much tension in the region and why the current conflict is going on. Starting with the origins of Palestine and Israel. According to Palestine and the History and Geography of a Name by Bernard Lewis, the name Palestine originates from the word Philistine, which was a group of people that lived in Canaan, which is where the modern state of Israel is today. It first came into official government use when the Romans conquered the region, and they used the name Palestine in order to undermine Jewish authority in the region. After the Romans changed the name, it was not used again until the British used it after they conquered the region from the Ottoman Empire, and they called the region the British Mandate of Palestine. Around the 1930s, the Arabs living in the region started to adopt the name Palestinians, and that's the origin of Palestine. The origin of Israel began in the Bible when Jacob wrestled with God and was given the name Israel after that. It first came into use after the Jews left Egypt and conquered Canaan and created the state of Israel. Later, the tribes of Judah and Benjamin split off from the rest of Israel, creating two nations, and the northern tribe of Israel was conquered by the Assyrians. After that, the name was not used again until 1948, where the new Jewish state in the region decided to call themselves Israel. Now, after World War II, it became very apparent that the Jews needed their own state, and it was eventually decided to put it in the British Mandate of Palestine due to the large number of Jews living there, as well as their ancestral homeland. The Arabs in the region did not like that. They did not want a Jewish state coming in and taking their land. So this was inevitably going to lead to conflict. And so when the British pulled out in 1948, that was when the 1948 War of Independence began. According to 1948 War of Independence as a Total War by Moshe Naor, the war started extremely against Israel. All of the Arab nations around Israel immediately attacked, trying to wipe Israel off the map before it could even get started. Israel ended up surviving due to a lot of American assistance, as well as the vast majority of people living in the region taking up arms on the side of Israel. After this, Israel has since fought 7 wars, and they're currently fighting their 8th. But I'm only going to talk about 2 of them because they provide a backbone for one of the most important parts of the region. Those being the Six-Day War and Yom Kippur War of 1967 and 1973. According to the Six-Day War, an inevitable conflict by Ephraim Karish, the tensions began to rise after the Soviets detected Israeli troops on the Syrian border. This was eventually proven to be not true by both Arab and Israeli sources. However, at the time, they did not know that. So Egypt, led by Nasser, decided to move troops into the Sinai Peninsula on the Israeli border. Egypt and Israel had an agreement not to place troops in the region so there wouldn't be any conflict. Israel, feeling threatened by the troops coming into the Sinai, decided to attack the Egyptians. And in only 6 days, Israel was able to conquer land all the way from the Golan Heights into the Sinai Peninsula, more than doubling its size. Later, during the Yom Kippur War, it was kind of a sequel to the Six-Day War. According to Turning the Vertical Flank, Air Power as a Maneuver Force and Theater Campaign by Robert Gibbons, the Egyptians and Syrians wanted the land they lost from Israel during the Six-Day War, and the only way they thought they could get it back was by a surprise attack and taking it from Israel. So both sides ended up surprise attacking Israel on Yom Kippur, one of Israel's holidays. That's why it's called the Yom Kippur War. The Arabs ended up losing due to the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli Defense Force. However, after the Yom Kippur War set the backbones, the first peace agreement between Israel and another Arab nation. Egypt desperately wanted the Sinai back. It was on the other side of the Suez Canal, which is the most important waterway in the world. Israel agreed to give Egypt the Sinai Peninsula back in exchange for Egyptian recognition of Israel, as well as a peace agreement between the two. Later, other peace agreements were signed between nations, including Morocco, Jordan, Bahrain, the UAE, Turkey, Sudan, and Chad. The majority, most of these Arab nations did this was not because they liked Israel or wanted Israel there. They did it because there was a new threat coming from the east, Iran. It is a very common but misconception that the Arab world is united. There's actually a huge divide between them. According to a primer to the Sunni-Shia conflict by Philip Holtman, there are two different major groups of Muslims, the Sunni Muslims and the Shia Muslims. The Sunni, which is about 90% of all of them, are led by Saudi Arabia. And the Shia, which are led by Iran, are much more radical and call for the killing of not just Jews, but in some cases the killing of the not as radical Sunnis. After the Ottoman Empire fell, which was a Shia nation, the Sunni nation, the Shia had the first opportunity to spread their influence across the region because there wasn't a congregated Shia force. So Iran started setting up proxy groups as well as completely overthrowing some nations to be on their side. Two of these proxy groups are Hamas and Hezbollah, which Israel is currently at war with. Others include the Houthis in Yemen, as well as Iraq and Syria, which have militant groups and are on Iran's side. According to Israel-Hamas War Analysis and Prospects by Zhang Jiang, Iran told Hamas to attack Israel because they didn't want a peace agreement to be signed between Saudi Arabia and Israel. This would unite the two sides against Iran, and that would be disastrous for Iran. So, I hope this information helped you understand what's happening in the region, why there is so much conflict, and why there's so much tension. Thank you for listening to my speech.